welcome to today's masterclass, one of 21 masterclasses in New Consciousness, a series that is looking at new ways of thinking, being and doing in response to today's rapidly changing world. Many of our speakers are giving us their tips, their guidance, their navigation tools for coping with this time of challenge and change. And all of us are trying to observe the physical laws which are there, the current regulation for our physical safety, but are we also observing the spiritual laws, the spiritual principles, which are there to protect us and make us feel safe and secure from within? Well, I think if even just a short while ago, any one of us had been told what was about to happen was going to happen, we probably would have said, no, that's impossible. Impossible that cities that never sleep would fall silent, that aeroplanes would stop flying, that shops, bars, restaurants, theatres, even schools would all close, that we would no longer go out to work, but we would work from home, and perhaps most challengingly of all, we would spend all of our time in home, only going out for essentials. The reporting in the news is very often using the word crisis, that the pandemic is a global crisis. And it's interesting when you look at the meaning of the word crisis, it actually comes from a medical term which describes the critical point when a patient either begins to get better and goes on the road to recovery, or begins to get worse and begins on the road to death and dying. So is that what we are seeing in the world now? Is this a global crisis? And in which case, what is the outcome going to be? And what do we, as people who would identify as being servers of humanity, of living a spiritual life, what is our role at this time in helping to determine that outcome? So today our topic is keeping calm in a crisis. And today, as with all of our other talks, our speakers are speaking from an organisation called the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University. As the name suggests, it's a university for the spirit. It's a place to understand the self, to understand the soul. And there are teaching centres in around 110 countries right around the world, teaching the knowledge of Raja Yoga meditation. And there's an active presence in even more countries than that. The organisation was established in 1936 in India through a series of teachings and actually visions that came through the original founder, Brahma. And these were teachings that were very much geared towards this transitional period that we are experiencing right now. And so the teachings are feeling more and more relevant as time goes on. Interestingly, the founder, Brahma, decided quite early on that it should be women that were put in front, making the Brahma Kumaris the largest organisation of its kind in the world to be led by women. Well, guiding us through our topic today on this journey of transformation and keeping calm in a crisis is someone who has spent her entire adult life in spiritual service to others. She's been teaching spiritual principles, inspiring others to adopt these principles in their day-to-day life, and serving humanity both locally from her base in London, but also internationally on the global stage, very much in demand as a speaker at conferences right around the world. She's also become well known at the conferences on climate change, where she has been stressing the importance of a change in human consciousness in order to bring about a change in the outer world. Within the world of the Brahma Kumaris, she was actually one of the first to take the teachings out of India when she came to London in 1971 to establish the first Brahma Kumaris centre in London and the first centre outside of India. Sister Jayanti is now the European Director of the Brahma Kumaris, and she is joining us today from India, from the beautiful headquarters in Mount Abu in Rajasthan, where she is spending lockdown. Sister Jayanti, welcome to the masterclasses. Thank you for being with us.
Hello, Philippa. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. You just happened to be in India when the lockdown came. What was your response to finding that you were going to be spending actually quite some time right there?
It was a sense of relief because it's a very challenging time for me personally and the organization, because on March the 27th, the head of our organization, who had stayed with us in London for 40 years, but had then resettled in India in 2005, she actually passed away at the age of 104. And that period when lockdown was announced, she was quite critically ill. So it was a sense of relief that I don't have to think about going or traveling, but I can just be stable in one place and just see how things evolve. And I'm grateful that I was here for her last period and then her final rites. And after that, it's also been a period of settling. And so I'm grateful that I was in India.
And in a way, that was a challenge for you. I mean, it's a challenge for all of us, like we've never experienced before. These are unprecedented times. But on top of that, you had the death of someone who you'd been very close to, actually since you were a child, had been a guide and a mentor and an absolute support for you throughout your life. Did you feel that your practice actually held up at that point and was there to support you in this double crisis that was happening in your life?
Absolutely. If I didn't have long years of meditation training, it would have been very, very turbulent for me. But as it was, I've managed better than I expected. I've been able to manage myself, manage my emotions and feelings, but also, yes, still carry that feeling of that loving presence, now in a greater subtle form. And I'm very grateful, actually, that she left during a period of lockdown, which sounds strange, but I know that she wanted to leave peacefully, quietly, without any fuss. And being who she was, such a giant personality, people would have come traveling on planes and trains for the next few days after her departure, wanting to be there for the final ceremonies. And it was lockdown, stay where you are, stay safe, stay well, and nobody could travel. And she could just have her wish fulfilled of no expense, perfect simplicity, total economy, in which she left just quietly with just a few of us around her. So it was fascinating to be part of that process. And also the period following her departure, that's still been locked down. And it's again meant that being in one place, there's been time for more reflection on the teachings that she's left with us, on the inspiration she's given us to not just follow in her footsteps, but to follow the one above and to move in that direction so that we come closer and closer to that one. So this crisis, the dual crisis, has been one in which both events have supported each other, which is synchronicity in a way. And so I've been grateful that I've had this time in which I'm stable in one place, because most times I'm not. I'm traveling too much. And so being here at this time has meant that I've had a chance to reflect, and also a chance to be with others who have been her close companions. And I think that's been a blessing, because otherwise I might have been pulled thinking that I'm needed somewhere else. Whereas in fact the greatest need was to be here with those close companions.
Dadi Janki, throughout her life, and you yourself as well, have been promoting this idea that we need to change, that the world needs to change, and that change will come about through individuals changing and transforming their lives. But even so, you must be amazed when you look around at what's happening in the world and see just how rapidly change has actually come. If nothing else, this whole episode has proved that change is possible.
It is incredible. I would not have believed that on a Sunday afternoon in London, from a studio in London, 50,000 people across the globe would join a program for several hours on well-being, as happened just a few days ago. And in that, I was told, You have this amount of time. You talk about whatever it is that's meaningful for you. And I said, can I talk about God? And they said, why not? This is a time when people need to know about God. And I know that it hasn't always been so easy to introduce the subject of God, but I think people are now ready for silence, ready for meditation, ready to understand who is the one above, and even to know what are the steps to be able to connect with that one above, so that they themselves can experience that spiritual power and the calmness that can come through the connection with the one. So yes, it's been very surprising for me that all this can happen within the space of basically 6 weeks. At some point in early March, I didn't know all this would happen, and maybe there were others who knew more about it, but certainly early March, I would not have imagined that 6 weeks later, practically the whole world would be just quiet and silent and still.
There's, of course, a huge amount of suffering going on in the world at the moment, but there's also a huge amount of newness that seems to be pouring in. People are taking this chance to reflect on how their lives were, how they want to make changes in the future. Many people are saying that they want to hold on to some of the changes that are taking place. What do you see as actually going on in the world from a spiritual perspective? And what can we do to try and anchor some of that newness, some of that positive change that has come about?
I think people are now more aware of the suffering of others, more so than they've ever been before. And so it's opened up a spring of compassion from within human hearts. And so we see people in key positions in the medical services, in the security services, and all sorts of other ways, giving their time, their energy, their love, their expertise, to be able to serve others and help others, even at the expense of maybe their own health in certain situations. And of course, people across the world have been showing their gratitude and their appreciation of those who have been in the front line of service in this way. So I see it on both sides. Those were ready to offer that support, and those were supporting the ones who were giving that support. And so I see that when there's a time of crisis, very often you see the best of human nature come out. And I'm seeing this happen. I'm also seeing that within families, there's a greater bonding that's happened. And there are many, many initiatives that I'm hearing across the world that are global in their outreach. People wanting people to come together for 5 minutes every day, people wanting to have online meditations for the world, things like this. And what they're beginning to be aware of is that whatever I can do alone as an individual through my prayer or my meditation, of course, is of benefit. But if we can do this collectively, that energy can multiply and amplify, and it can reach the world and give other people hope for the future. I see that at this moment of crisis, the question of hope is a very important one. For me, it's significant because on a physical level, when a human being has hope for the future, the immunity is boosted. And when we lose hope, that's when our immunity goes down and we succumb to the illness, or there's very dire consequences. And so I see that people are aware that meditation, prayer are ways in which not only do we keep the flame of hope ignited in our hearts, but we are also able to share those vibrations of hope with our brothers and sisters across the world. I think one of the big lessons in a very positive way has been to realize that truly we are a global family. Something starts in one country and it spreads across the whole world. And the virus knows no boundaries, doesn't respect any difference of gender or culture or age or anything. And so we're in it all together. We're truly in the same boat. And so all of us together are responsible for what is happening, and all of us together can bring a difference. And so it's not just me alone, but to be aware of that spiritual bond that links us together as a global family is something that we've really become very aware of. We've spoken about a global village, but we didn't see the immediate impact of things. And now we are seeing how much impact there is. And so I think one of the things that people will carry beyond the pandemic is this awareness of a global family. Another thing they will also carry beyond is that we can share a lot together, even though we can't meet physically together. We can share our love through our eyes. We can share our love through kind actions for each other. We can share our love through our vibrations and our feelings. So we are learning a whole new language. We are learning the language of love, the language of silence. And the other thing, of course, is that we are also learning that at some point, it's very important to bring God back into the center of our lives once again. For some, if I look at the stage of my life, where is God? Not visible at all. And for others, maybe at the periphery, once a week, and for a few, once a day. But now I think God has come back into the center of the lives of many, many of those who I know and am in contact with. And so we know that with that love, with that care, with that compassion that comes from above for the soul individually, we can also be channels. When we connect, then what we're able to do is to channel that care and love and compassion out into the world so that many, many others can experience this also. So my hope is that beyond the pandemic, people will be aware of this. One other thing I think is a very big lesson that we're learning is we can actually simplify our needs. We don't need as much food as we thought we did. We don't need so much entertainment as we thought we did. But what we do need is each other. And so I think the bonding of families has happened in a very powerful way. And my feeling is that that bonding is something that's going to stay beyond everything that goes on now and things become somewhat normal again. We'll remember that it's our families that count the most, and the love that we can give our families is a very, very powerful foundation for love within the whole of civilization. And so it's an opportunity for love and compassion to return to our lives.
You've given so much in that answer for us to think about. You've talked about the care of the frontline workers. And I think if there's one word for me that has emerged from all of this, it is kindness, actually. That we are seeing a sort of a global pandemic of kindness. And that's happening at community grassroots levels, that communities are coming together through acts of kindness in a way that they never did. And that, as you say, seems to be opening up the heart of humanity in this very beautiful and profound way. And the other aspect which you touched on, which I think is also so important, is this sense of me and my actions having a consequence on others. So I need to wash my hands not just to protect myself, or wear a mask not just to protect myself, but I'm thinking of other people and their needs. And I'm seeing this experience being repeated right around the world, and we're coming together as this global family, as you say. But I want to bring us to this core of our talk today, our conversation, which is keeping calm in a crisis. And I wonder where you see the balance being between calm, and if so, why is that the right response of a spiritual person? And when should you respond to that call for action, to actually getting involved and doing things and becoming more out there and active? What is the spiritual response, and why is calm so important?
It's not so much either or, but a question of sequence. When you walk to a destination, you have to put one foot in front of the other and take it a step at a time, and you'll surely get to your destination. In this case, I'm seeing it's a little bit of the same story. What do I do first? First is I have to go inside and stop the fear in my mind, the confusion, the blame game, the complaint game. And when I've stopped these negative thoughts and I've come back to the inner being that I truly am, that space in which I live inside, the spiritual being that I am, when I come to that inner space, I find silence and peace and calm. Now, from this space of calm, I can understand more clearly what my responsibilities are. Who is it that I'm responsible for? Yes, myself. Yes, my immediate family or my immediate colleagues. But beyond that, my community, the globe. And so when I understand the sequence of what it is I need to be doing, then I can start moving into action. Otherwise, what happens is that if I'm confused or if I'm anxious or I'm fearful, then I can't even look after myself, let alone care for my family or beyond. I don't have the capacity to be able to do that. And so finding that calm within is allowing my capacity to develop and grow so that now I can make use of that inner power and the skills that I have, the qualities that I have, and maximize their potential in the best way possible. And so calm is the starting point. I can't begin in a state in which I'm in a whirlwind. Say, for example, if I'm afraid, when I speak to my children or to my spouse, my partner, whoever, I'll be needing their support. I won't be able to give them support. But if I've stilled my fears by understanding that no, it's not the end of the world, it's not even the end of my life necessarily, there's still time and there are still things I can do if I understand what I need to do. And so instead of getting into a tiz and a fluster and being afraid and generating that sense of fear around me, I'm able to stay calm, not be afraid, be very clear, be very positive, and approach my family and others with that awareness, so that then I'm able to spread those vibrations of calm and still their fears also. If I'm afraid, I'm infecting them, just as I can infect with a virus. Similarly, I'm infecting others with fear. It's absolutely infectious. And so, in a state of calm, I'm deciding what I need to do and how I need to do it and when I need to do it. And I'm sharing that calm with people around me, not just within my own family or my immediate relatives, but I'm sharing that calm through vibrations, and that's moving out into the world also. And that also multiplies that others who are like-minded begin to do the same.
Can I rewind one step before that? Because we're talking about coming from a place of calm. But many people's reality right now is that they are experiencing a situation which has got them completely the furthest they can ever be from calm. I'm seeing that mental health cases are going up hugely. We're seeing domestic violence has gone up hugely. We're seeing that things that were weak before are really breaking apart. We're seeing, people's normal distractions are no longer there for them and they're faced with themselves. And so for someone who's maybe living in a small flat, who's maybe lost their job, who's maybe worried about losing their home, who's got children at home, maybe has a husband who is not at all happy, is taking it out on everyone around them. Can you give us a practical first step you can take when it feels like you have become your problems and it feels like you're not going to get out of this hole that you're in? What's the very first thing we should do in order for us to get to that place of calm that you're talking about?
Yes, I agree with all the things you've said. I'm aware of all the situations that are arising. And so what I need to do is to just simply ask myself the question, who am I? And it might sound too philosophical and abstract when I'm surrounded by problems, but I can't solve problems if I'm looking at them on the horizontal level. There'll always be complications, and I find an answer, I think it's a solution, but it's creating more problems. I have to find another way to approach this huge, huge crisis. And I would say what I have to do is to step up above. I want to use the word an observer. Many, many years ago, a social worker told me that she was taught if she's inside a situation with a family and all the crises that are going on within the family, she would never be able to resolve things just staying in that situation. But she had to bring herself out of the situation and be an observer looking in through a window. And if she could detach her consciousness and be an observer and see what was going on, it would make a lot more sense. There would be much more meaning in what was happening. And she could then re-enter the scene, and she would then be able to help all the individuals involved. So my suggestion is that we try a little of the same technique. And physically I'm here. I can't even go outside, never mind anywhere else. But what I can do is raise my consciousness to a state up above and look down on what is happening across the world, across the globe, and also what's happening in my own family, in my own home. And just from that vantage point of being up above and looking down at what's going on, I'll be able to see much more than I could when I was here in the middle of all the chaos in the family home. So be up above and look down and see what's going on. And further, second step would be, can I stay calm and continue that observation? Third step, can I come back into the situation and hold on to the calm that I experienced when I was up above? And I hope that if you try this experiment, just step up above, see what's happening, stay calm and not be affected, just continue to see what's happening and bring back that calm when you re-enter the fray. And even a moment of calm will give you a huge sense of energy, an energy that you've carried back with yourself into your life of action. And engage then in that state of calm inside, and you'll be able to have a different attitude. You'll be able to find more meaning in what's going on, and maybe you'll even be able to laugh at yourself and help others keep smiling too.
Very fantastically practical steps that each one of us can take. And it is interesting, this experience, because the places that people would normally go to for support, whether that be a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a temple or gurdwara, they're all closed as well. Or people might go to the theatre and cheer themselves up, or go to a restaurant to meet with friends and have a nice meal and cheer themselves up. But we're all of us on our own, locked into our own experience. And this is making many people realize the importance actually of what is going on inside their own mind, inside their own head. And that the support that you need to cope with times like this isn't going to come from anything out there. As you're saying, it's only going to come through maintaining and managing my own internal world. And that brings us on to the importance of trying to establish a regular practice for yourself that when times are good, fine, still do your practice. But when times are hard, you've got a wealth of feeling and experience that you've built up that you can draw on at that time. Can you say a few words about building this up for yourself over time? A practice of meditation is what we're talking about, really.
You're absolutely right. If today I begin a practice because I need it, well, fine. But continue that practice beyond the crisis. And if you've already started a practice before the crisis came, great, because that practice will now stand you in good stead. What happens is that if I'm haphazard with anything, I lose my ability to be able to master that game or whatever it is I'm trying to do. Whether it's cooking, whether it's driving, whether it's using a new program on my computer, I need to keep at it and I'll master it. And maybe it'll be a short time, maybe it'll be a longer time, but I'll definitely be able to achieve mastery. Same thing with our thoughts. We haven't realized that we are actually the masters of our own thoughts. And I think that this is maybe a very critical point in which I hope many, many people take the opportunity of lockdown to really explore their own inner world and see what's going on. And what I can do is, when I come to the awareness of my own spiritual understanding of identity, and I know I'm this being of light, radiating light from here, what I'm doing in meditation is reminding myself of this, remembering this. Who am I? And in this awareness of being that light that I am, the being that I am, I can see that my thoughts come to me from here and there, but what I can now do is to learn to create my own thoughts. And that is meditation. Learning to create thoughts in a very beautiful, uplifting, fruitful way, a noble way. So I'm thinking about the original state of being of the soul, the original qualities of the soul, and I'm letting myself experience those beautiful natural qualities of truth and love and peace that lie within. And I have to say that these qualities, without exception, are there in every human being. I just need that practice of letting myself sit quietly so that I can reflect on this. And later on, you don't even need to sit. You can be walking and thinking about these things. But initially, it does need that practice. And so let me sit for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, and if I'm enjoying it, let it move on for a lot longer than that. But to start being the creator of thoughts, not just the one who's reacting to situations from outside and having thoughts come rushing in on that moment, but to actually generate good thoughts, pure thoughts. If I can learn to do this, then yes, this is the practice that will always, always help me, whether in crisis or at a time of calm. In crisis, if I can learn to master my mind and keep my mind on track in a positive direction, I'll be the one who finds the solution to the problems. And at a time of calm and peace, if I can keep track of my mind, I can not only uplift myself and move forward fast in my own spiritual journey, but I can help others around me do the same also. So absolutely, the practice that I've had until now will help me. The practice that I begin today can help me, but I need to continue with that practice, whether it's 10 minutes every day, whether it's 20 minutes every day, whatever it is. But to know that meditation is not just blanking the mind or emptying the mind, which actually is very difficult, but to be able to generate good thoughts, pure thoughts about the eternal self.
It's absolutely true, because everything else can be taken away from you, but you will always be left with your thoughts. They are your constant companion. And I know from speaking to other BK Brahma Kumaris centres around the world that the take up for their online meditation courses has gone from maybe 10 on a course to 1,500 people wanting to take a meditation course. So people are really waking up to this now. And in a way, if you look at words like emergency, they contain within them the word emergence or emerge. And in China, the word for crisis is the same as the word for opportunity. And it seems like there is some kind of alchemy going on at the moment, that within this suffering and this fear and the pandemic and all the thoughts that come with that, there is the flip side of that is this emergence of something very new and very beautiful. And I'm also contemplating the phrase new normal, which people are talking about a lot, that this is now our new normal, and that maybe learning to cope with challenge and change and possibly even crisis is now our new normal. And I wonder if you could just say something about trying to transform these difficult experiences, as you're saying, into little nuggets of gold that can emerge and actually carry us through these difficult times.
If at this moment I can make a list of what it is I'm grateful for. If I have a roof above my head, let me be grateful for that. If I have a loving family I'm with, let me be grateful for that. If I have enough food to eat, let me be grateful for that. Let me start with all the external things that I'm grateful for. And I'll begin to then reflect on the more subtle things that I'm grateful for. The fact that I'm surrounded with love, or the fact that my family is safe, whatever. But when I start thinking about the things I'm grateful for, then I realize that although this is a very strange situation that I've never been in before, no one in the world has been in this situation before, but yet there are things to be grateful for, and things could be much, much worse. And even if things are really absolutely at the deep end of the scenario in which my worst fears have been realized, even in that situation, let me ask the question, what are the lessons that I'm learning? What is it that is my anchor at this moment? And so to become aware of those things is very significant and important. And also to understand the meaning behind something. I'll give you a simple example. I come out and my car tire has a puncture and I'm not able to drive. I'm thinking about more normal circumstances. But either I can curse it and say, why does this always happen to me? Everything interferes in my plans. I don't know what's going on. But let me pause. Well, maybe it's better that the puncture happened now. Imagine what would have happened if the puncture came when I was driving at high speed on the motorway. And so there's always something to be grateful for. Even in the worst case scenario, there are things that I can be grateful for. And if I can carry this sense of gratitude with me, then that's going to be a very sweet way of moving things in the right direction. When I'm grateful, then it means that I can be positive and I can be loving towards others, kind towards others. If I'm ungrateful and if I'm hating everything that's going on, then in that state of consciousness, whatever it is I do and touch is going to be very difficult. It's going to get worse and worse. But if I can be grateful and from that starting point allow my gratitude, my compassion and kindness to emerge, which it will also bring a cheer to somebody, bring a smile to somebody. I'll be able to do something of meaning and something of value for myself and for others. So I think that if we carry this away with ourselves out of this crisis, it'll be of benefit for all. And I think that this is a big, big transition period. I think we are seeing the transition, well, it's actually a coming together of two things. Things that are highly negative, but also this new awakening of love, of kindness and hope for the future, and this awareness that we're in this all together. It's not one part separated from another part, but we're in the same boat. And the whole human family, the whole of humanity is now on that course in which, if we choose, we can cooperate together, work together instead of getting into conflict with each other. Whether it's my own mind in conflict with myself, or me in conflict with my family, or communities and countries in conflict with each other, we are not going to be able to make it to the next step of evolution. But the next step of evolution has to be that our goodness comes out and is expressed in ways that are meaningful. We've been through a period of darkness. The virus has come in a way as the tip of the iceberg. The darkness has been with us for a long time, but it's now that we've suddenly realized how mechanical our lives have become. And so now, time to slow down, time to stop and reflect and change and start working together so that together, cooperatively, we create a better world for ourselves and for others too. It's everyone together now.
I talked earlier about this word crisis coming from a medical term, meaning that critical point where you either get better or you get worse and die, and this being a global crisis. I wonder if we could, before we do some meditation, which would be lovely to do, if we could just go into meditation with your thoughts on what is the prognosis for the global patient. Is the patient going to recover and get well, or is it going to get worse and die? How do you see the future unfolding?
I see that this is the beginning of a period of great challenge. And I think there'll be a few more challenges. Maybe the economic crisis that's going to come following this is going to hit. If I haven't started thinking about deeper things in my life, I think the economic crisis is going to come and make me stop in my tracks and think about life in a deeper way. But beyond that, I see that awakening in which people have had a new understanding and a new consciousness that's come about. That is going to be the norm. The new norm is going to be the one in which our own highest potential as human beings is being expressed. The goodness, the beauty of humanity is going to be flourishing, and that's going to be the new era that's waiting for us. A little time of darkness, and that's coming just to make us change more if we haven't changed already. But beyond that, yes, the dawn, a time in which there's going to be the most exquisite qualities of humanity being expressed.
Well, that's a beautiful vision to hold in our hearts and in our thoughts, that through this darkness there will come an emergence. From the emergency will come a new emergence. So, Sister Jayanti, it would just be lovely if you could end our time together by leading us into a meditation, maybe focusing on supporting someone who's in that dark place right now, who is needing to find calm to cope with the crisis that is going on, and just give us some thoughts as we just spend a few moments together and experience some of these qualities that you've been talking about.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Sitting quietly, let the body relax. Your feet, your legs, your back, your arms, your neck, your face. I visualize myself as that inner being, the being of light, shining in the forehead. And in this awareness, I come to that feeling of peace which is within me. I let go of other thoughts and I focus on this peace. This is who I am, a being of peace. And in this sense of peace, I can feel the presence of the divine, the source of light, of love, of purity, of peace. And this light and love reaches out to souls who need to experience this light, and as this light touches them, hope is ignited in their hearts, and the power of God's love is able to remove their pain and ease their suffering. God's love heals the heart. And God's light reaches out to the whole human family, touching all those in need, and the healing happens not only for my family, my global family, but also for all forms of life and beyond. The healing of nature, the elements begins to happen. God's love heals the entire planet and everyone and everything on this planet, so that we become whole again and we are united again as a family. I hold the globe in God's light. And filled with this light, I come back to the awareness of the moment here and now. And I keep this light with myself to protect myself and all those around me. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Sister Jayanti. I get the feeling that anyone watching this today will have had an experience that in their mind they can return to in the days to come, and just remember this feeling of true stillness and silence and this feeling of safety that you have created for us today. So thank you so much for doing that and for being with us. You've touched on many subjects which we haven't had time to go into in detail, but throughout the rest of this series of 21 masterclasses we will be returning to this topic of understanding the self, of who am I, the topic of understanding the divine, which you've touched on today. We'll be going into these in detail in the rest of this series, so I hope you'll be able to join us for every one of them. We'll have another one for you tomorrow, but in the meantime, take these thoughts that Sister Jayanti has shared with us, turn them over in your mind in your own quiet times, and really use this as a chance to bring about newness and change in your life. Keep safe, keep well. Om Shanti. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye. "21 Masterclasses in New Consciousness, New Ways of Thinking, Being and Doing for the New You." Pioneering thinkers from countries right around the world